Hello friends. Today we have a very emotional and difficult story that has shaken a person to the depths of his soul. Imagine what it would be like to find out that your partner, whom you trusted the most, had an affair at work. It's a story of betrayal, pain, and reinvention. How did he deal with this blow and what did he do next? Stay tuned to find out all the details. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss new stories that can help you in difficult moments of life. My name is Michael, I am 38 years old, and I never thought that I would face such a situation in my life. I always thought our marriage with Julia was perfect. We have been together for almost 12 years. We have 2 children, a boy named Oliver and a girl, Sophie. We lived in the suburbs, in a cozy house where everything seemed stable and calm. Our lives were painted work, children, weekends together, and rare evenings when we could just sit together with a glass of wine and talk. I worked as an engineer, and Julia worked as a manager in a marketing company. We have always supported each other in our careers, rejoiced at our achievements, and tried to be the best partners for each other. But like many couples, over time our lives began to fill with routine. I noticed that she began to stay at work more and more often, which bothered me a little, but I didn't pay much attention to it. After all, she was working on an important project, and I thought it was temporary. One day, a few months after her work delays became regular, I began to notice some changes in her behavior. Julia became more distant, as if her thoughts were somewhere far away. We stopped spending time together, and if we did, conversations were superficial, without the previous intimacy. Sometimes she forgot to ask about my day or my affairs with the children, which was not like her at all. I tried to discuss it with her, saying that I missed her attention, but she always found excuses. "I'm sorry, Mike, I'm so stressed at work right now. This project consumes all the time and effort," she said. And I, as a faithful and understanding husband, believed her. I even offered to take a vacation together, go somewhere to get away from all this fuss. But she always found a reason to refuse. "I can't right now, there's too much to do, maybe later, when the project is over." However, one day I noticed something that made me think deeper. It was a normal evening, and I was sitting at the table in our living room when her phone rang. She answered quickly, as usual, but her voice had changed. She spoke more softly, smiled, and seemed to be completely immersed in the conversation. After the call, I asked who was that. Julia answered quickly, it was a colleague. We discussed the project. But something in her answer seemed strange to me. After that moment, I started noticing little things. She became more secretive with her phone, often leaving it screened down or taking it with her when she left the room. She had never done that in the past, and it started to make me suspicious. I felt that something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. My suspicions continued to grow. One evening, when Julia said she would be late at work again, I decided to visit her office. Maybe it was paranoid, but I couldn't get rid of the oppressive feeling inside. I arrived at her office, but to my surprise, her car was not in the parking lot. I decided to wait, maybe she parked somewhere else, but she never showed up. When she returned home, I decided not to ask any questions. I was just looking at her, trying to figure out where she was. She was in a good mood, as if nothing had happened, which only strengthened my confidence that something was wrong. The real turning point happened a few weeks later. I accidentally came across her laptop, which she left open when she went to the store with the kids. I was tormented by curiosity, and without hesitation, I decided to look into her messages. That was the moment when I saw the correspondence between Julia and her colleague named Alex. At first, the conversations seemed innocent, professional, but the further I flipped through, the more personal they became. My hands were shaking as I read the words of love they exchanged. In one of the messages she wrote, "I can't wait to see you again, Alex. I miss you more than I can say." It was like being stabbed in the heart. My world collapsed at that moment. I couldn't believe that my wife, the woman I shared my life with, had cheated on me with a colleague. This feeling of betrayal was unbearable. I felt anger, pain, disappointment. But before I say anything, I decided to find out more. The next few days were the most difficult in my life. I kept looking for evidence of her affair, looked into her phone, laptop, and each time I found more and more evidence. They met at hotels, had lunch together, and even during work meetings they had romantic dates. My heart was breaking. When I was sure that I had enough evidence, I decided to talk to her. It was Friday night, the children were already asleep, and I gathered all my thoughts so as not to lose my temper. I said calmly, "Julia, we need to talk." She looked at me with mild surprise and asked, "About what?" I continued, "I know about your affair with Alex." Her face paled and she froze. She couldn't say a word, as if she didn't expect me to ever find out. "How long has this been going on?" I asked coldly. She tried to say something, but tears began to flow down her cheeks. "Michael, I'm sorry," was all she could say. We sat in silence, and the only thing I could feel was unbearable pain. Why, I asked. "Why did you do this to me?" With our family, she was silent. At that moment, I realized that nothing she said would change the fact that she had betrayed our trust. Everything I've built in these 12 years has collapsed in an instant. The next day, I packed my things and went to my brother's place. I couldn't stay in a house that now seemed alien to me. I needed time to think about everything, to figure out what to do next. I met with a lawyer, and a few weeks later we filed for divorce. Julia tried to contact me, wrote long messages with apologies, offered to go through family therapy, but I couldn't go back. Her betrayal was too much to forgive. The divorce was difficult, especially for our children. I tried to explain to them that sometimes relationships between adults change, but they still remain the most important in my life. Julia got custody, but I continued to see the kids every weekend. Time passed and I began to heal. I've learned to forgive myself for not noticing her cheating earlier. I realized that sometimes people change, and it's not always our fault. Life goes on, and I believe that I will find the strength to build a new life for myself and my children. This story has become a lesson for me that trust is the foundation of any marriage. When it collapses, everything else breaks down. But at the same time, I realize that despite all the difficulties, I need to keep moving forward.